Very good. Okay, folks, welcome today to this Wednesday afternoon. And this will be a CE class, which will be entitled New Construction. It's a 2-hour class. And just to remind you of those division rules that Leslie Ann has just shared with you, I have to remind you one more time. As a division requires it, a full name on the screen. If for some reason you're not using your name, please talk to Leslie Ann about that, and she'll be able to clarify your name, have your video turned on, of course, and be in attendance for the whole of the class. And hopefully we can engage with one another as we go through this class and share ideas and thoughts. And I will share with you 3 keywords when this little icon pops up. That's our little poodle Merlin, and the keyword will flash on the screen. I will not respond to any chat, so I'll run full screen throughout the presentation. And if you have anything to say, and I really do like people to chime in, whether it's thoughts, stories, questions, experiences, just literally unmute and just chime in, just interrupt me. That's totally fine. I cannot see everybody on screen, so if you raise your hand, I can't see that. So literally just unmute and chime in. We love to hear from you and have your experience shared with others. Jennifer Yo is our principal broker, and she's come up with the Raising the Bar series. And she has said this: irrespective of how much we might get paid on a transaction, our overall objective from the outset should be to give 100% of our efforts to ensure a smooth transaction. And often in new construction, that transaction can take many months, depending on where we are in the process. Here's a nice, interesting quote from that Chinese philosopher Confucius. He said this, he said, "Our greatest joy is not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall." Sometimes in this industry, we might have a few rough chapters, or we might stumble and feel like we're not being successful. I encourage you to just be enthusiastically able to get back up and rise again for the challenge. So we're going to talk about new construction today. As you probably know, Utah is one of the highest new construction states in the USA. I think it's Utah and Colorado. So more new construction taking place in this state than most of the other states. It's a high-end business, and of course, for those of you being realtors for many years, you would have been involved in this industry of new construction. So hopefully we can go through this and try and touch a lot of areas that maybe will be helpful, or reminders to those of us who have been in this business for many years, and good nuggets to learn for those of you who are just starting in this business. We'll try and cover the following over the next couple of hours. We'll first of all, obviously, look at how important it is to educate our client. We'll talk about communication. We'll talk about overcoming challenges. We'll look at the importance of finding the right builder. We'll look at that contract gently, not in too much detail. We'll also look at the house plans and design of new construction. We'll go through the building process, right through the inspections, final walkthrough and settlement and after sales. That's what we'll try and cover in the next couple of hours. Let's start off with educating our client. As you notice in our agreement with the client, and remember the agreements between our client and the broker or the brokerage, notice what it says here. If during the initial term or any extension of the initial term, the buyer or any other person acting in the buyer's behalf acquires an interest in any real property, as referenced in section 1 above, the buyer agrees to pay the company a brokerage fee in the amount of, and that will be usually a dollar amount, or often it is a percentage amount, okay? Notice as we read through this, it goes on to say, let's see, the buyer agent commission paid to the buyer company, the listing brokerage shall satisfy the buyer's obligation for the brokerage fee shown above, provided that the BAC is not less than the amount shown above. If the BAC is less than the amount shown above, buyer will pay the difference at closing. So just be aware of that. That's what they're signing for. So if you've got in there, like maybe you've got 3%, which is what we generally would like to see in there, and for some reason the builder's only offering 2.5% in this part of the contract, the buyer, the client, is actually signing that they will pay the difference at closing. So just be aware of what is being signed for. So make sure that your buyer understands what they've signed in the exclusive buyer broker agreement. And this is what it basically says. Buyer agrees to pay the brokerage fee on any real property referenced in section 1. This includes new construction. Sometimes you may have a client who you start working with, you're looking at existing homes and everything's fine and dandy until they drive down the road, they see a model home or they see an open house for a model home or an area, and they pop in there, they have a little chat with the agent there, which is a new construction company, and they then think, let's just build. That'll be better than buying an existing property. And they forget sometimes that their agreement with your brokerage actually includes new construction. So make sure you have a little chat early on, even if you're working with existing possible purchases. Has anybody had that experience? Any of our seasoned agents had an experience where they had an agent who has moved from looking at an existing property to buy to a new construction, and they've had to remind them that this brokerage fee also includes that. Anybody here had the situation where they've had to remind a buyer that they are going to be paying the difference at closing if the BAC is less than 3%, if that's what has been agreed in the term? Anybody got any questions on that slide? I've not actually had a buyer that has had to pay the difference, but I have had a buyer that has said to me, hey, if the BAC is less than 3%, we will still pay the extra. So I have had that happen.
Well, I always thought it was the sellers that always paid the commission, not the buyers. So is this just on new construction that buyers paid the commission, the brokerage fee?
Okay. Well, let's make sure we understand. And you're absolutely right. In the listing agreement, if you got the 6% there, and you were doing a 3 and 3, the 3% is for the brokerage that's bringing a client to you. But the agreement within the listing, within the buyer broker agreements clearly says that if you put in there an amount, and if you put in 3%, let's say we'll talk 3%, and there's a seller that's only offering a 2% or 2.5% or something different to the 3%, then the difference is being made up by the buyer. Do you understand that, Elizabeth?
I see what I see now. Thank you.
Yeah. Good. Okay. And it is a bit confusing sometimes, particularly, when you start to look at this word. It's just good for us to know where we're starting, and particularly when we're working in a state where there's a lot of new construction. So sometimes we are working with a buyer, they're looking at an existing home, and then for whatever reason, they end up on a different track and they start looking at new homes. We do need to make sure that they understand that this agreement includes the acquisition of real estate property, whether it's existing or new. And of course, whatever has been agreed in there, they're agreeing to pay you as the buyer's agent to find them a home for whatever that cost amount or percentage is. Good. Anybody got any other questions on that slide?
I had a situation where the MLS, they agreed to pay one thing, but then when they were writing the contract, they changed their agreement to pay a lot less. So they were changing things up.
So if you're in that situation and you're looking at a property, it's a good idea to screenshot or copy that MLS listing so you can see exactly what they put in the BAC. So that, if they did decide later on, you can actually show them what was there when you were looking at the property. Does that make sense?
I was fighting them, but it was a big problem, and so it was too big of a fight, and yeah, it was a big fight.
You thought that then win the battle, you lose the war. I get you.
Yeah.
Sometimes that happens. But yeah, if you do copy, Melinda, if you do copy that MLS listing, you have got a document then that is a legal document. You can say, look, you listed this at this amount BAC, and so that's what we're expecting to pay here. Just because you changed it later It doesn't allow you to move out of the obligation that you've already listed on the MLS.
You also, there's always a history on any of the listings on the MLS. So even if you didn't save a copy, you can check the history and it will show who changed it, what date, and what the change was. But I think it is good for a quick reference to have the proof of the MLS listing, copy, do a PDF copy of that, how it looked on the MLS. But did your broker not help you fight that, Melinda?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's obviously quite a difficult one. Yeah. So yeah, definitely always get your broker involved. And with all of these things, it's a really good idea to be clear from the outset how we are running, this journey, and making sure everyone's on the same page. And that can usually help us down the track if we have some challenges. Let's look at some of our builder incentives, because if we're working with a client, some of these builders, and we got some great builders out there. There are not many builders that are not great. There are some great builders out there, but they do have some very clever incentives that sometimes can derail our clients from a particular course. So let's just highlight some of these and see if we can just learn a bit. I put here, some builders can be very persuasive to new clients, offering them a range of different incentives that can encourage a buyer not to use a realtor. Unfortunately, there are some builders that will do that. And obviously the first one is save money by not paying the BAC and obviously offering them a lower purchase price. They may include more upgrades if they don't use a realtor. Use the builder's lending institution to get cash out that they can also spend on new upgrades. Some may consider us being the middleman, and best to cut them out and deal directly with the builder. Obviously, the problem is the builder represents themselves, not the buyer. So it's a good idea to have this conversation with your client beforehand so that they understand and they're wise to what may or may not happen if they're, if they are being encouraged in a different direction from a builder. Let me pause there for a moment. See if anyone's got any stories I'd like to share where they've had to deal with a client who has been, I guess, persuaded to move to another line working with a builder, maybe not use a realtor. And how would we work with that? I have some seasoned people on here. Let me see if I can pull someone in. I always like to engage with people. Let's see, Ryan, how are you today? Good to have you with us, Ryan. I know Ryan has been in this thing all the while. Yeah, good to have you with us today. Tell us some of the challenges that we may have when we're working in this area of concern with builders.
Well, the biggest thing that we've come up with is showing the client what you can help them with, even though they're being asked to not use your services. There's still a good point where you can encourage them to that you know what you're doing and can help them make sure they don't get in any pitfalls.
Perfect. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate that. I've got some thoughts here that we might consider when we're looking at this that might be helpful if we are working in this territory. So first of all, the sole interest of a realtor is to represent and protect the buyer. That's what we do. That's what we're there for. That's what we're getting paid for. And, there are a lot of builders that actually will say, we want you to have a realtor. We want you to be represented. We want you to be looked after because they recognize they're looking after themselves, and we want you to have a good experience. And there are some really good builders out there that actually prefer their clients to be represented by a realtor for that sole reason. Of course, you understand and can check the contracts. And in my experience, when I've worked with builders, they are pretty good at going through their contract. They'll have their own paperwork, but they do go line by line. Particularly these builders that are doing lots of track homes. I've found them to be very good. But sometimes your client may not fully understand, and because you're hopefully there with them, or you're obviously there through the process, you can at least help them understand during or after that process what the contract means. Obviously, you have an in-depth knowledge of real estate transactions totally because you're a professional. You have a wide platform of knowledge that you can access right across the board. Other realtors, obviously brokerage. We've got the division of real estate that we can contact for particular help if it's any legal support we need. We have good negotiation skills that can help us to have a good transaction that runs smoothly, because sometimes with a builder, we're going to have many months of communication with them. And not to highlight this too much, but unfortunately, there are some builders out there that are not as good as others. And for those of you who've been in the industry long enough, you will know that there are some builders that are not good builders, unfortunately. We learned this very, very early on in our time in real estate. We didn't know any builders. There was a local builder, and he approached us, and we thought, okay, let's give him a go. And it turned out to be a very bad experience. We found out later on from some of the neighbours that they would not touch this builder with a barge pole because they'd all had awful experiences with him. And so sometimes, you get caught when you're green in this industry. I'd encourage all of you who are brand new in this industry to work closely with your broker and ask him or her to help you have a list of different builders and what their styles and focuses are within their niche market. Obviously, you can stand up for the buyer even after the transaction. Sometimes things go wrong after the transaction. You're there to support and help them. You'll help them with inspections, contract contingencies, and how they all fall together. You will not allow the buyer to be pressurized into a certain lender. Sometimes that can happen with some of the builders, maybe intentionally or not intentionally. Anybody got any questions on any of those comments on that slide?
I had an experience once where I actually had to help the buyer or the builder with my buyer because he was running herd over all the contractors. He had his own business. He didn't have to be anywhere all day. And the builder called me and said, man, these guys are over there telling the concrete guys what to do and stuff. And it all worked out. But sometimes you have to play Henry Kissinger.
Yeah, very good, Walter. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, very good. Just also check when you go into a building contract, check on price lockdowns within whatever terms they've got, because obviously both materials and labor are increasing all the time. And certainly over the last couple of years, you'll have noticed a swing increase in timber and also in metal. You know, those of you who are probably going to Home Depot to go for a few projects or Lowe's will have noticed that timber went up dramatically at the end of 2020 and still kept rising through most of 2021. It only started to drop off, I guess, from the middle of 21 down, and metal is the same. And of course, if core materials are going up and you've not got a price lockdown in that contract, then of course the cost of the build is going to increase. So just be aware of that one. Just a note there, obviously, by having personal representation is going to be definitely the best when you're working with a builder. So communication is the key. I quite like this little visual. It will come up in a minute. Let's see. I'll just load these in so I don't lose a. Oh, it's not on this one. It's on the next one. Okay, that's fine. I'll just load these in so that there we go. I put up here. It's important that your client, the buyer, informs you if they're thinking of new construction. If from the outset they're thinking about that, there's a few things you can do to help them. Obviously, give them some of your business cards. So if they are traveling around and they see, you know, a potential neighborhood they're interested in, or a certain builder who's got some nice builds going on, they've got your business cards, they can hand them to the builder or the salesperson and say, hey, I'm represented, here's my realtor, and I would like to look around. That's a really good thing to do. If they are considering meeting with a builder, ideally have them talk to you first, because you really want to be there on that first meeting. Some builders will only give commission if the realtor is with the client on that first meeting. So be aware of that. If for some reason you can't make it, call that builder ahead of the time. In fact, call the builder ahead of the time anyway on that first appointment. Let them know you're coming, and discuss with the builder without your client there, just what their VAC, so that you're aware of what you're dealing with right from the outset. And of course, if they are able to meet with your client without you being there, at least that you're in the game, okay, and they know who you are and that you are helping that client. I think good communication on this will help all those three drafts get on well together. Anybody got any thoughts or comments on that slide? All righty, let's talk about communication. This is the one I was thinking was coming up next. This is a really good one. So how important is communication? I think it's very important. How many of you have been over to the UK? Anybody been to England on this class? I have a few people on here. Have you been to England? Just unmute, say, I've been there.
I've been there.
Perfect. Who's calling? Who's saying?
It was me.
Oh, it's a Minette, is it?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Minette. Have you ever seen these? She'll say loads of them.
Yes, indeed. Love them.
Yeah. Alison, did you say you've been over to the UK as well?
Yes.
You have as well. You've seen these as well, haven't you?
Yes.
I have two.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. You know, sometimes you'll see these telephone boxes and you'll see lots of them. If you're in London or Birmingham, sometimes you might see a dozen of these all lined up together, because this is how people used to communicate through the telephone in the early days. And
They have them in
they're all close
Gibraltar
together.
too.
Say that again, Minette.
Sorry, they have them in Gibraltar.
Oh, they do, yes.
Right.
Well, of course, Gibraltar was part of, it is part of the British Isles. Yeah, so that's how close we need to be in communication in real estate. I just thought it was a good little visual. We've got to be that close. We've got to be so close to our builder and our client that we can make this thing work. So I put here a note: communication between builder and buyer. A buyer's agent must be the very best when dealing with new construction. It's going to last for a long time. So you need to make sure that we are in good communication on a continual basis. Emails are generally easier to find than locating text messages. So think about that. It's great to do text messages and great to do phone calls, but when you're working with new construction, it's a good idea to have a trail of emails that are referencing those calls or those text messages. Because, you know, if you start today in February and that bill's not going to be completed till November, December, you know, and come October, there's something that we are not clear about, and we spoke about it in March, and you've only got it on text. It's hard to scroll all the way back to March if you're a fairly heavy texting person. So ideally, as you're going through this process, try and confirm things through email. And I'm not talking about major things that are to do with the contracts. Obviously, you'll have addendums that will do those. I'm talking about little chats that are going on, little small things that have been agreed. If you put those in an email, it'll be very easy to locate that information if you're chasing email. So that might be a thought you consider. Always copy in the builder and the buyer when your email refers to both parties. That's pretty important. And of course, ask your buyer to copy you in on all their communication with the builder. And of course, ask your builder to copy you in on all the communication with your client, who's the buyer. It's really important you do that, because then everybody knows what's going on. Sometimes when the builder gets going, there can be a lot of to and fro from the builder to the client, and you don't necessarily need to be involved in that detail, but it's good to be copied in. You may say, were you able to go to the design center and choose out your, you know, your stone colors or your ironwork or whatever it may be? And they say, yeah, we decided we're going to choose this. Yeah, that's great. Just have them copy you in so you can see what's going on, so you can see how this thing is developing. And, you know, if there is something that looks like it's slightly out, you can chime in and help accordingly. Any thoughts on that slide, or any comments or questions or stories or experiences? Just chime in. Always like to have experiences. Okay. You are going to have some challenges, most likely with a new build, because that's just the way it is. So put some thoughts in that might be useful. First, always be honest with both your client, the buyer, and of course your builder. Work together to solve problems. I quite like this little visual here. you know, sometimes we are the person on the rock that needs the help up. Sometimes it's our builder, sometimes it's our client, sometimes it's the loan officer, sometimes it's the inspector. Whoever it is, the other people that are involved in this transaction need to do their best to help that one person be in tune with the others. So just remember, when we're working with new construction, it is a long process, and very often when things are a little bit out of sync, it takes all of us to pull together, work together, and overcome them. Be a good mediator, of course. Remember, all parties, the builder, the buyer, and you as the agent, actually want this to work out. We all want to have this home built, and we want it done in a timely manner, and we all want to be pleased. Builders want to see their clients happy. They really do, and so do we. If you've got something that crops up that may be difficult, just get on it early. Don't let it fester. Do not ignore it. Deal with it quickly. If you can't have all the answers from your own experience, work with your broker or another realtor or someone else who can help you. But please respond quickly, because that's what will give you the best help in this business when you're working with new construction. I've got a little thought here. I always share this comment. It's one of my little top numbers. Information reduces frustration. I often think people get frustrated because they don't have enough information. But you've got something that's not working right. Maybe they're not even started digging, and the client's getting totally frustrated. And you say, look, this is what's happened. I had a meeting with the planning meeting last week. They're trying to get the permits from the city. They've not been given yet, but they have said that within the next 2 or 3 weeks, they should be able to give those permits. All of a sudden, that frustration has been reduced if you share that information with your client, you know, or maybe the cabinets have not arrived, or maybe the framing's not started, and maybe it's because we've got a shortage of labor, or we've got a delay in shipping. So information will always reduce frustration, and you don't want your client to be frustrated, because they can easily be frustrated when you're looking at new construction. Any thoughts or comments on that slide, or anything? Anybody got any stories to share where they've dealt with a frustrated client or a builder? I've not sent you all to sleep this afternoon, have I? How many people have got on here? 20 people. No stories on that, huh? Or chime in if you've got
Steve,
one.
I do have a quick comment. This is Sherry Mill.
Perfect. Sherry, how are you today?
I am good.
And how long have you been a realtor? Tell people how long you've been in this game for.
Oh my goodness, almost 20 years.
Perfect. You'll have some great stories.
Oh,
Tell us,
yeah.
what can you share? What can you share with us today?
I have got one going on right now that we put under contract back in October of 2020.
Wow.
Yes. And I am working with a realtor that he is also overseeing the whole entire project. And he will not respond.
Oh, that's frustrating.
Yes.
So have they started the build?
They started the build
Okay. And what stage
probably
is it
about
at?
9 months ago. And they have
Uh-oh.
stopped at the foundation, saying
Okay.
lack of people to work,
Okay.
and they're not
And
giving us a final date.
right. And I presume you've not worked with this builder before. And is this? I presume this is a custom maker, a custom builder.
Yeah, it's actually a complex down in Hurricane.
Right. Okay. So what they've done, they've started the project. It sounds like they may have run out of funds to actually keep the project moving. They may have too many projects going on. They can't keep them all moving,
Right.
because we got the foundation going. You know, certainly they should have framers in there by now. Absolutely.
Yeah. And
But at the moment, you've
good
lost contact with them.
information.
Yeah, and that is a real problem. It's a real problem, that is, Sherry. You've got to re-establish that connection with the builder, because if you've got no communication, sometimes that is a red flag that could end up being a no flagger.
Yeah, he will not respond to emails whatsoever. So I did go to his broker
Right. Yeah.
that's handling that end of it, and his broker said, try texting him. That's the only way I can get an answer.
Have you tried actually physically going to his premises?
That's a really good question because he is not always on the premise down there.
So you've definitely got to work closely with your broker on this one, but you'll need to do something because your client will certainly be getting very frustrated because
He is getting frustrated, yes, but we're not going to lose his property. We want to keep it.
Yeah, so the best thing overall is trying to establish that communication so we can start to move things forward. But yeah, you've got to figure out a way of connecting to that builder.
I'll keep
All
on.
right, well, thanks for sharing that one, Sherry. And it's good for those of you who have just got involved in real estate to know that these challenges do happen. And they're not happening all the time in large quantities, but they do happen. So good. All right, that brings up our first keyword. Yes.
Oh, Stephen,
Yes, fire away. Is that Diane? Is it?
it is Diane.
Hi.
I just wanted to share an experience I had probably about 8 years ago. It was a new construction. It was a big builder, and my client was out of state. And so we met for different meetings, and they picked out their colors, of course. And then they come in right before closing. The house is going to be completed and doing their walkthrough. And the builder had put in the wrong carpet. And the builder was adamant that this was what the buyer had picked out. Luckily, we both the buyer and myself, had kept copies of all our meetings with them. And, it worked out good because there was good communication during the whole time. And they conceded that they had made a mistake, and they replaced all the carpet in the home before we would close on the home.
Yeah, that's a great story, Diane. And you were smart enough to keep all that documentation.
Right.
Sometimes, and maybe that builder was one of them, it just happened. He got it confused with another property. But once you can show that trail of agreements through particularly email is really the best way to do it. Then they'll say, yeah, often a good builder will fix it because they want to keep you, the realtor, because the realtor will bring them more business. So well done on that, Brian. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, so we got our first keyword, actually, not our next one. The first keyword is going to be finding, F-I-N-D-I-N-G. Finding, that should be shouting out on your screen at the moment. Finding, F-I-N-D-I-N-G. So jot that down. At the end of this class, Leslie Ann will share with you a link, and then you'll be able to enter that keyword into that link form.
Can I just remind all attendees, they must be on camera. I need to see your face, and I cannot have your camera facing a wall or something else. Otherwise, I cannot give you credit. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Leslie Ann.
I thought you already gave a keyword before. Is this the very first one?
This is the first one. If the other one was given, if there was another one given, I must have missed it. No, this is the first one.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
First keyword. Write it down. F-I-N-D-I-N-G.
Got it. Thank you.
Oh, just to let you know, we can't share this again, so please don't share it in chat. If you somehow someone says, "What's the first keyword?" you say, "Can't share," but they can talk to Leslie Ann privately about that. But we're not allowed to share it again. I can't say it again, and I can't share it in the chat. All right. So finding the right builder. First of all, maybe we should talk to other realtors because maybe they will know good builders in your area, or builders that we might want to be aware of if we've got a client looking at them that maybe they're not that good. Recommendations from your broker is a really good source to find good builders. Often the broker's been around for a while and knows the area well, and also knows lots of experiences that many of his or her agents have had with builders. So that's a good area. Referrals from family and friends is a great place. If you know people that have built a house with this builder, talk to them, say, how did it go? How was the process? We are happy with your build. And often they will be very honest with you, and you'll find out, where your best builders are. Here's some things you may consider. Figure out whether or not you are going to be buying the land, or is the builder buying the land. So you may find a piece of land and you may buy it and then find a builder to build on it, or you may find a piece of land that a builder has for sale, or someone has for sale, and then you're going to have either that builder or another builder build on it. So figure out who's paying for the land. Obviously, a builder will get a construction loan on it if they're doing it. Find out what the builder's speciality is. Some of these builders are specializing in, I guess, more economic or cheaper homes. Others specialize in, custom built homes. Some builders specialize in flexibility. Others specialize in offering some type of landscaping or extras that are inside the home. So figure out what the speciality is so that you can get a good fit for your client. Let's pause on this one a moment. So we've got custom made, track or spec home. They're the kind of three little titles we'll come across, or types of homes that we'll come across in this industry. So who would like to unmute and tell me the difference between the made, track and spec homes? Those of you who know my style, if I don't get anybody respond, I just got my list and I invite someone to chime in.
Okay, this is Mark.
Mark, how are you, Mark? Good to see you today again.
Good to see you too. Well, of course, a custom home is what it said. It's custom. It's made per order. With our son is actually an architect and designs homes, so he does a lot of custom homes for people.
Perfect.
And a spec home is you go to a subdivision.
Just stay with me on the custom home. So if I want to have a custom home, more or less, as long as the land will accommodate it, and it falls within the zoning rights, I can more or less have whatever type of home I want. Is that correct?
Well, there's HOA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some parameters you have to meet.
Yeah.
But within those parameters, you can design kind of what you want.
Perfect. Thank you. Let's go into the track home.
Track home is more of you go into subdivision and you might have a choice between 2 or 3 different options.
Yeah.
And that's what you get. Make your choice.
And can I change anything on those track homes? Is there anything that I can do to alter it slightly?
I think it depends on the builder. Some builders will allow, I guess, a little more leeway than others. We're actually working with a client that's looking up in your area, up in Logan. It's a condo, but they weren't able to upgrade anything because the builder already put in all the upgrades they can have, and that's what they get. But I think sometimes they can do a few upgrades or different things.
Yeah, but usually it's going to be minor. It'll usually be minor, as Mark just said. You won't be moving walls, but you may be able to have some extra, electrical outlets, or you may be able to have, if it's not being built, you may be able to change some of the smaller things in that home. Perfect. And what about this spec home? What's that about?
Well, I thought a spec and a track were pretty similar, so I'm not sure, I guess.
Okay, good. Let's see if we can figure out what that is then. Anybody want to chime in on the spec home? Help Mark out on that?
Spec home is short for speculative. It's a home that you build hoping somebody will buy it.
Good. Yeah. So what will happen is it probably is a track home, as Mark just said, but this builder sells so many of these particular designs, he knows that he can most likely sell it. So they build them. They've not got a buyer, but it's all ready to go. When someone walks on that builder front there, they say, "Yep, we've got a couple of spec homes out there. They are that design. That one's in this color. This one's in the other color. Which do you want?" And away we go.
And the bigger builders always have, well, not so much in this market, but because they get snatched up. But most builders will build a percentage of their homes as spec homes, because there's a lot of people that don't want to wait the 6 to 12 month wait to build from scratch. So
yeah, very good. And of course, the only downside there is it is completely built, so the colors and the scheme, whatever it's got in there, is as it is. You won't be able to change anything on the spec home, unless of course the builder agrees to do something that you pay for. extra.
Sometimes builders will be building in it, right from scratch, and they'll let buyers know they have these spec homes coming up, and some of the builders will let them change if it's not too far along.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Leslie-Ann. Thanks, Royce, for that. Great. And thanks, Mark. So these are some of the things, generally speaking, generally it's without a basement, but have that conversation early on, because also lots of homes that are going to be built with a basement. So figure out if that's going to include or not include the basement. I know a lot of homes over here do not have the basements completed. There may be a home warranty that's offered. Find out what that is and what sort it is, what it covers. Figure out if there are going to be some alterations or upgrades that you can make. Figure out what they are from the outset. Then they say you can change this, this, and this, and you can't change that. Mark highlighted that early on. Also, it's really nice to know who's going to oversee the construction. Often they'll have like a kind of a manager that will work with you if it's a larger company. If it's a small company, often it will just be the builder that you'll be working with, but figure out who your first point of contact is. What and when are the inspections? We're going to talk about inspections a little bit later on this, so we'll hone in on that one. But there are quite a few inspections that are taking place through this building process. It's nice to know when and what they are. How long is it going to take to build? Well, that's always one of the top questions after they've figured out, how much it's going to pay for it. Be aware that sometimes a builder cannot meet that deadline, and it may not be his or her fault. It may just be outside changes that are happening in the city, or it may be to do with not getting enough or getting materials in at the right time, or even labor might be scarce in certain times of the year. So often it will take a bit longer, particularly if it's a custom built home. The bigger builders are usually better at keeping closer to those timeframes because they're building so many of them. There may be some upfront costs. If there are, let's find out what they are. Let's figure out when we're going to pay them. All right. And there will be some discussion on landscaping, blinds and fences, often not included, generally speaking. Usually some landscaping is included on the front of the property, and then you'll have a certain amount of time to tidy up the back of the property. So there's some questions you may ask when you're finding the right build, the right fit. Can be a little bit like walking through a maze, and that's how we build a building there with that maze. So just make sure you get the right builder. If you get the right builder from the outset, your experience and journey will be much more pleasurable than if you don't. And we have seen some real difficult stories.
Stephen?
Yes.
One of the places that you're talking about to find the right builder, one of the best places to check was the Doppel Division of Professional Licensing to see who is and who has the complaints against them and what they have going against it. If you're looking for somebody, that's your best place to start with.
Yeah, that's a very
Hey,
good
Mark?
idea.
Sorry, can you repeat what that was again? You said Doppel?
Yeah, Doppel Division of Professional Licensing through the state.
Yeah, Doppel.
Actually, as a realtor, you're through Doppel yourself, because that's where your license is held.
Yeah, that's good. But
Ryan,
even
would
so,
you be willing to write that in the chat for everyone? It's along the bottom of the screen, and if you get a drop-down menu, if you select everyone, could you just pop that information in there? I think that would be great.
yeah, thanks, Ryan. But even though they may have the licensing, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are, really good builders. But it's a start. It's definitely going to put you in the right direction. You are definitely also good to work with references, people that have experience with them. Good, thank you, Ryan, for that. All right, so let's tuck into this a bit deeper. So I'm doing on time here. Oh, I've got to move a bit quicker. All right. So contracts written by the builders are usually in favor of the builder, of course. Can you believe that? Make sure your client fully understands before signing that. Sometimes they may be encouraged more than they need to be encouraged. And it's okay for them to say, let me think about this. let me go away and study this contract to make sure I'm good to sign it. And hopefully you can be there when they are looking at that. Find out from the builder what your buyer's agent commission is, and are you being paid on the full price of the property or only on the base price? So that's something you need to ask, particularly if you're working with track homes. Where will the escrow money be held? Under what conditions is it protected? Often it will be held, you know, with an escrow officer with the builder. Also, it can be with a brokerage. So find out what that is. Figure out what your due diligence time is before that deposit goes hard. Some of the big builders only have a small deposit. For custom builders, they'll have a larger deposit. So figure out what that is and where it's going to be held. And if there are some stage payments, which often is the case with custom build, let's make sure we know what they are and when they will be needed to be paid. And sometimes they can be large sums of money. You know, it might be initial $10,000 down, and then, you know, the next stage might be $50,000. I'm talking large monies, whereas the bigger builders who are doing them all the time, they usually don't have to go into those large platforms of stage payments because they're not custom built homes. Custom builder, he can't sell it to anybody else, he only sell it to you. So that's why we do that. Okay, house plans. There are a lot of people who don't understand how these plans look. So, you know, if you're working with a custom build and, you know, you've gone to, was it Mark's son or nephew, whoever it was, who's the builder, the designer, the architect, and he knows all about it, but your client may not be able to read these plans very well. So just be aware that if you're doing a custom build, you need to make sure that you've got enough space in the different rooms to do what you want to do. Here are some thoughts you might consider. Measurements. Check you have enough room for your furniture, your cabinets, your piano, whatever's going to go in there. Make sure your garage is long enough to take your long truck. Or maybe you want room on the side of the home for an RV pad or boat, etc. Make sure you measure it up. And don't just measure the distance from the house to the fence, because if you're going to have a RV down there, you know, there's going to be guttering, there's going to be, you know, some pipes or things poking out that wall. Often you've got to make sure you take that into consideration. Of course, your fence post doesn't go right to the wall either. Usually there's about a foot or so before your gate open. So make sure you think about those measurements so they can get whatever they need to get in to the property or to the side of the property. Think about electrical sockets. It's a real pain when you've had a brand new house built and you've not got an electric socket where you actually need it. So figure out where your furniture is going to go. Figure out if you've got some special appliances in that they can quickly get to electrical sockets. Lights, very, very important lights. It's always good to have more light in a building than not enough light, particularly in kitchens and bathrooms. I remember we sold a custom built home to one of our clients a few years ago. They loved the home, loved it. But when I said to him, is anything in this home that you are wishing you'd done different? He says, yeah, it's just not light enough. We wish we put more lights in. And of course, it's much more difficult to put extra lights in when the house is built. So think about that. Think about where those are going to go as well. Any chandeliers or dining tables that we've got to roll over. Think about windows. Figure out where the property is, where the compass is, the north, south, east, and west, where that sun is going to come in, and figure out where your windows are going to be, because pretty important, particularly in Utah when we get such hot summers. So there are 4 little areas you might consider when you're working with plans and design. So the considerations you might consider, particularly building from scratch. Okay, low voltage wiring is very much interested these days. People like this audio, visual, surround systems for television, intercom systems, maybe alarm systems, security cameras, sensors and controls. So that's going to be low voltage wiring. And if you can get that in the walls beforehand, that's a good idea, particularly if you're having the basement done and you want a theatre down there or something or other. Outside electrics might also be needed. You might have, I don't know, you want power to a little workshop out there you're going to build, or maybe a pergola or in the yard somewhere. You know, think about that, because you can get the electrics in the ground before you have your landscaping done, if you wanted to, you know, light up some lighting or whatever. Another one is your natural gas outlet. Often people like a fire pit or maybe barbecue. If that's the case, then let's see if we can lock that in. If they want to have the barbecue on the deck, it's really nice to have that gas outlet for the natural gas, if you can do that. Another one is your soft water pallet chute. Some people like these in the garage so that they can just put them down the chute, go straight down to the basement, saves them carrying up and down the stairs. So that might be something to consider. Insulation. Sometimes, depending on where you are in Utah, you may want a bit more insulation. If you're up on the bench or somewhere, you might think, let's just get some more insulation in that roof. And if that's the case, then good time to talk about it is before the house is completed, certainly early on. And then this is another one, that little drain there can be quite useful, but very difficult to put in after the house is built if you've not thought about that. Often, particularly with custom builders, they don't think about these other bits and pieces you may want. They have a base design, but if you want like a washer drain or an animal mudroom drain or some sort of drain or sink, workshop, or water hose maybe in the garage, you need to ask for that early on. And if you highlight some of these areas, you'll find your clients will really be pleased that they're working with you as their realtor, because you are thinking about them and you're thinking about what you might need, even if you were buying the home. So these are just little things that can help you add value to your client. Any questions or thoughts on that slide? Or anything I missed out? Very good. All right. Let's talk about boundary markers. And pretty important, particularly if you're working on a piece of land where there are properties all around have already been built and you've got this piece of land that you're working on, and maybe, and we've seen this, in fact, this happened with a house we bought, maybe the markers are not in the right place. So here's some thoughts. Locate the boundary markers and check and make sure they are correct. Review the site plan, make sure that the house is in the correct position on the land. See the plat map parcel. Plat map diagram will show you how your purchase property is divided within the county, city, or neighborhood. This map will also show the tract of land that has been created by licensed surveyors. The plat map is drawn to scale and records the plots of land with the property boundaries. Okay. If you've got any concerns, you might want to get a surveyor out. Usually costs around $750, up or down, depending on where you are and what sort of size or expense that land is. So just think about that. Pretty important to get that squared up early on. Difficult to figure out after the build has been done. Any thoughts or comments on that?
I have a question about that.
Thank you.
My buyers were under contract for a lot in Eagle Mountain in Glenmar Ranch, and it's already been surveyed. They've already put stakes in, but the stakes have been moved. And so does that mean we're going to have to do another survey in order for them to go out? And
who's moved the stakes?
I have no idea.
Presumably not the surveyor.
There's only 2 blue stakes in the front of the property right now. And when I called to talk to the engineering company that did the survey, they said that's probably where the water line is. That's not where the property boundary line marker is. So I'm just wondering if it's already been surveyed, they've already staked it, but we don't have stakes anymore. Someone moved them, then we have to have it resurveyed again, right?
No, if it's been surveyed, the surveyor will have a record of where he's put those stakes. He should.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant to say it needs to be restaked, like pinned and staked, right?
If the surveyor has already done, he's put the stakes out there, he'll have a record of where those stakes are. All right. And the builder's probably, whoever you spoke to is probably correct that if it's a blue stake, most likely is representing the water, the drinking water. And we'll look at some of the markers in a couple of slides time, which may be able to help you figure out what some of these markers mean. All right, but they will change the markers from pink to white, depending on what sort of process they are in on the construction build.
I think what Minette's asking though, if she suspects that someone's moved them and they shouldn't have done, does she not need to get a surveyor out to recheck? Is that right, Minette?
Yeah, that's correct. Even though it's already been surveyed and it's already been staked, some of the stakes are missing. And so I'm just wondering if we have to redo that. So,
but the builder's already involved in this project, isn't he?
No builder yet.
Oh, no builder. Okay, no builder yet. Ah, okay. I misunderstood that. Right. So you just got the land. Well, and did your client enlist the services of the surveyor?
No, the current seller already had it surveyed and staked. But when
Okay.
my buyer went out there, there's only those 2 blue stakes in the front. So
Maybe your buyer will have to get the surveyor out then.
okay.
That may be the best option. So I
Stephen,
don't know why they might be. Yes, Royce, fire away.
just an observation. I don't know that this is legally enforceable, but my experience is that if it's in a development, the developer is typically willing to help you find the pins. They're the ones that hired it in the first place to be divided. The surveyor came out as they were in the development stage. I haven't found a developer who's not willing to help you locate those pins. And often the stakes above, the wooden stakes above, will get snapped or moved, or
Yeah,
but the
that's
pin
right.
should be there.
Yeah, I'd agree with Royce on that.
Thank you.
So, yeah, very good. Thanks, Royce, for that. But if you don't get any joy there, then you may have to get someone else. But Royce is right. The actual city developers have a responsibility to make sure that those stakes are available. And because they sometimes use these thin pieces of wood, they can actually be knocked out, by a wild animal, and they might just be down in the ground somewhere. Very good. Let's look at the building process. And this is basically what we've got. We've got a chunk of stuff going on here. Breaking the ground, we've got the footing. Oh, let me go back to that one. That was a bit too quick, that was. There we go. Breaking the ground, we've got the footing of the foundation, the rough plumbing, the framing, the sheeting, the trusses, the roofing, shingles, tiles and vents, plumbing complete, electric, the HVAC, ducting, and four-way inspection. So let's go through those, see what we can learn. This is the most exciting part of the project, usually, because your client's already met with the architect and we've all agreed what we're going to do. The builder has planned out when this is going to take place. And then we see the big digger out there, digging the earth. I'd encourage your clients, if they live close by, to take some photographs, out of hours, of course, to watch this process, because it can be quite exciting to see a piece of land turn into a house. So breaking ground. We have these footings, the foundation going, those little footings on the left there, the first thing that goes in. And if you've looked, at your map and you understand where the bits are, you're going to look at this. Your client goes and looks at it the weekend when the builders aren't there, or after hours in the evening, and they see something that's adrift. It's a good idea to catch it here, because much more difficult once we've got those foundation walls in. So that's what you've got going on. You've got those footings that go in, get all the rebars in there, and then they come in with these big forms, fill them up with concrete, and that's how you get your walls in there, which is your foundation, which you're going to build the house on. Rough plumbing will go in next. You'll see pipes sticking out of the concrete, sticking out of the floor, different colored pipes, doing different colored things. And it's kind of fun to walk around the house as it starts to take shape. And you can start to see, where your rooms are going to be, your cold storage and your electrical room, basement or whatever. You'll probably see some of these different colored flags. So let's have a look at these, see if we can figure out what they are. The red flag, we've got the orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, pink, and white. So let's start off with that red flag. Who knows what the red flag is? Anybody got any idea what red flag means? There it is at the bottom there. Sometimes it could be a flag, sometimes it could be some paint, some spray paint, red. What do you think red means?
Electrical.
Electrical. Who said that? Oh, is it Melinda? Melinda, you're on it. Good job. Electrical. So that's what your red flags are. And basically, this can be different types of electrical that's in the ground. The internet stopped. Let me just make a note on that. 23. Why is it stuck on 23? Let's pull it out of that. Oh, it was loading in. It just started loading. It was probably a internet glitch there. So whether it's flags, paints or markers, you'll see overhead or below ground electrical lines. These can be plastic or metal pipes that have multiple wires in them. And they can be assembled together or bundled together if the contractors want. But if you see those electric flags, that's what they mean. Or those red flags, that's what they mean, electric. And if you've got a client that says, well, the red flag is, you say, it's electric lines. Don't dig a hole there. Let's go to the orange. Who can tell me what oranges are? Anybody know what orange is?
Communication.
Yeah. Who said that?
Tina Navarez.
Peter, how are you? Thank you. Yep, communication is right. It's just loading in. I'm not sure why it's taking so long today. Okay, I'll have to go out on half a screen. Hopefully you can still see that. All right, so there we have communication will be your orange, which is your telecommunication, cable TV, normal single lines, cables and conduits, and you'll see those in there. All right, what about yellow? Who can tell me what yellow means? Okay, flammable liquids. Okay, so your yellow is going to be obviously your gas or petroleum, anything that's flammable. You're going to see in that yellow color. We don't so much have oil and steam here, but they are all going to be in the yellow. Often it's the gas, as far as we're concerned here in often new construction that's close to buildings. Good. Let's go to the green. Everybody know what the green is? Those big fat pipes. That gives you a good clue.
Sewage.
Yep, perfect. That's what it is. It's a sewage. So it's any wastewater or body waste, toilets or baths or showers, drain lines moving stormwater, etc. They'll move it to more useful areas that can be pulled out and released and processed. So that's what your green is. Blue. We know what blue is, guys, don't we? We know some blue. Drinking water, of course, is the blue. And I mentioned this last week, but we actually have a pretty good grade of water here in Utah. It's a B+. So they're your different water providers. We have these are the 5 largest ones in Utah. And you can see those grades B+. We've got 3 of them that are actually C-. So presumably our water's pretty good here. I had someone on a class recently, they told me they're from Arizona. The water was awful there. You could not drink it. But here, certainly, water is pretty good. And if you are close to the mountains, obviously, you'll be ideal to get a softener in there or reverse osmosis to give you better water. Let's move to the purple. What's the purple? Gives you an idea with that little visual there. Okay, reclaimed water. So you don't be drinking this stuff. It's usually used more than once, in fact, many times usually. Pretty good for irrigation though. And often comes from the groundwater or springs or wells. Can come from lakes, reservoirs, etc. Slurry lines, pipelines used to move coal or iron or mining waste. That's what you've got if you're on the purples. Let's go to the pinks. Anybody know what pinks are? Temporary. So if you see a pink, you don't see it there very long. Usually it's there as a marker saying, we think this is the area. We'll be tidying this up later, but these are temporary markings. We just got to check them out. But most likely they'll end up being your main markers. The land surveyor will draw precisely the exact lines between adjoining properties, which in turn will become the legal boundary of the property. And you can see these in flags, paint markers, which will also identify unknown or identified facilities. So if there's something there you're not too sure about, you'll probably see a pink flag. Finally, whites. You'll probably see those very early on because they're going to help our big machines there start to do the excavating. So basically, you'll see the white flags early on, which can also be paint lines or just flags into the dirt. So there are your, 8 different colors that we generally use in construction. Anybody got any questions on those? All right, let's toodle on then. So rough plumbing is going to go in there. Now you know roughly what those colors represent. You can sound like you know what you're talking about when your client asks you, what does this flag mean? You guess, that's the sewage. Those green ones are. Okay, so here we are, the framing. Framing is probably the most exciting part of the build in the early days, because now we can actually see the physical three-dimensional view of the building. So, you know, we can walk around it after hours, of course, not while the builders are there. But it's good to walk around, have a look at it, see how it's going. If you do live close, just make sure you don't fall off the edge. You're going to get the trusses and the roofing is going to come in next. They're usually pre-made, brought in with a crane. You just slip them on the top there, and those workers will fix on all in position. Looks great. Then we get the roof's going to go on, shingles and tiles and vents. Starts to look more like a house. And then inside, we're going to start to see the plumbing is one of the first things that's going to be put in place. And, you know, if you are able to view the build as it goes along, if your client is able to get in there, obviously with permission of the builder, it's a good idea to photograph this, because you can see what you can do. And if you have to move a wall or you have to change a tub, we actually built this house, and that tub in the bottom there, we did have to change out. So it was useful for me to see where the framework was, so that I could easily switch that out at a later date. All right, we've got the electrics all going next, and make sure you've got enough electrics where you need them. We'll go on this four-way inspection, and they will cover the building when it's in framework section. Okay. HVAC ducting. When I first came over to the US, I wasn't sure what HVAC meant, because we don't use it in England. But of course, it's heating, ventilation, air conditioning, ducting. So that's what your HVAC is. That brings up to our next keyword. See how we're doing on time. 2:10, that's pretty good. All right, let's open up that second keyword. If you didn't get the first keyword, please reach out to Leslie Ann. Don't ask for it on chat. We can't share it with you on chat. I can't repeat it again, but the second keyword is going to be foundation. That's just loading on your screen. Should be shouting out at you now. FOUNDATION. Foundation. That will be your second keyword. Number two keyword. So two keywords. The first one did begin with an F, but I cannot repeat it again in this class. If you didn't get that, talk to Leslie Ann through private chat. Foundation is your second keyword on this class today. So four-way inspection, and what are we looking at in the four-way inspection? Who can tell me what are we checking on this four-way inspection? Who should I pick on? Who have we not heard from today? Christina, how about you chiming in? Is Christina still with us? I can see my name here. Maybe she's not with us. I can't see everybody. Who'd like to tell me what a four-way inspection is? We've got some new agents here, probably like to know that. Nobody.
What did you say it was? A four-way inspection?
Four-way inspection. Yeah. Is that you, Melinda? It's just being you on this class, Melinda, at the moment. I'm just joking. So what's a four-way inspection?
I want to
There's some
pretend.
clues. Yeah, there's some clues just above in that line.
I don't know. I want to.
Electrics.
Would you just see the electric and then the plumbing,
Yes.
and then
Yes.
the everything, and then everything.
You got it. Okay, so the four-way inspection usually is the framing. All right, we're checking the framing, we're checking the plumbing, we're checking the electric, checking the HVAC. That's what we're really looking at. There it is, framing, plumbing, electric, HVAC. And generally speaking, you'll be invited to go on that four-way inspection. I'd encourage you to do that. Go with your client, walk around the house with the builder or whoever's doing this for the builder. It might be a manager, and he or she will go through the whole of the house and make sure that everything's in position. That really is important, because you can change some things. In this particular house, in that framing photo in the top there, we actually moved that fireplace to the corner into the right section in the corner rather than have it sticking out there. I had a client, when we went on a four-way inspection, he was about 6'6", and he was insistent when we started the process of building this home that he really did not want to be bending his head down anymore in showers. And he wanted that shower head at, 6'10" or 7 foot. He wanted it as high as he could possibly get it in the shower, in the master bathroom. And we went on the full inspection. And he found out this was actually a track home that they were building, but they had agreed to, do this alteration for him. And of course, went in there and it was not high enough. It had not been moved, but it was easy for the builder to change that at that stage, because all they had to do was to extend that pipe up. So when you're walking on the four-way inspection, you can check and make sure most of these things are in position and looking good for you. Any questions on that slide? So for those new agents today, remember the four-way inspection is your framing, plumbing, electrics, and HVAC. That's what your four-way inspection is. Windows coming next. These windows are usually pre-made. They're different types of glass, in different parts of the home. So obviously the bathroom, they'll have that shatter glass, safety glass, and then of course, the general double glazing glass in the rest of the building. And sometimes they have to switch those windows out if they've been given the wrong glass in the frame that fits the bathroom or whatever. So we've seen that happen a few times. You've got your drywall installation. This is quite nice. And then you've got the taping and the texture that goes on. A lot of these tapers and texture folk professionals are very, very good. They can make these walls look very, very clean and extremely flat. So it's kind of nice to see it taking place when that drywall installation goes in. Carpentry goes in next. And if you've got any special requirements for carpentry, like you want shelves a certain distance apart, this is how you can check it, or hope it before you've already got them to leave you spaces that you need, or extra shelves that you need within your carpentry. Painting. Let's pause on painting a moment. So I learned over here in the US, we describe painting slightly differently in new construction. So we would automatically understand in England that we call them the floorboards, they're called baseboards here. The baseboards, the frameworks and the doors are all one colour, and we don't count that in the paint colour. Whereas over here, that is counted in the paint colour. So if you're looking for a three-tone paint colour, you'll be looking at your baseboards and your frameworks as one colour, your walls as the second colour, and your ceilings as the third colour. So if you've got a builder that says, in this price, you've got two-tone paint, just make sure your client understands that means one of the colors is your baseboards and your door frameworks, and the other color will be the walls and the ceiling, which will be the same color. That's what two-tone paint color is. Whereas three-tone would be having the ceiling a different color. Did I explain that okay? Are we all good with that? It's an easy one to miss, particularly when you're working with a client who's not familiar with it, and I wasn't familiar with it when I first came over here. So just make sure you understand the three-tone. It includes the baseboard and the framework as well. So if they want to have the ceilings a different color, they'll need that three-tone. If they ask for two-tone, it is quite a bit cheaper, because when they're doing the ceiling, obviously they have to mask everything out, all the pipes and the vents and the electrical lights. It's all been masked out in order for them to paint.
Can I add one thing about paint?
Yes, thank you, Minette.
No, of course. So my husband He built like 20 homes in Payson years ago, and his brother and sister-in-law bought a home around the corner from ours, and she chose canary yellow for the entire house. Now this is it was a 2-story like entry and then a 2-story family room section. They painted the entire house that canary yellow, and she walked and said, that doesn't look like the same color that I picked in the store because it had so many lights, like there's so many windows.
Right.
And they ended up having to repaint the entire house a different color. So just keep in mind, lighting makes all the difference when you're picking out colors. Just be very careful, and maybe even have your clients try 2 or 3 different colors once they get sheetrock, just to kind of see what the color is going to look like.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Minette, because it happens all the time in new construction. They go into the design center and they see this little swatch. They say, I like that color, but they cannot imagine what that little swatch looks like when it's, you know, on a 10 or 15 foot wall. And it's the same with the outside of the house. They see a color for the siding, you know, or the stucco, and they're happy with the color because then the whole house is painted this brown or whatever, orange or whatever it may be. It looks totally different. Or they get some, you know, some stonework that looks great on a small little sample, or a carpet. Carpet's another one. They look carpet, I think, oh, this is a really nice looking carpet. Of course, when it's down and it's, you know, on large spaces, it can look very different. Ideally, if they've found something they like and they can go and look in another home that has that carpet or that color or that siding color, they can get a much better idea as to whether or not they like the color. So thanks for highlighting that. It's a great point. And often our clients are so excited about building the home, they forget they have to be really detailed when it comes to colors. And as Minette also said, windows and lighting make a huge difference. Artificial light makes a huge difference to how that color is going to look. And it does depend on which rooms it's in, because it depends how much natural light is coming into that room. So it's not an easy thing. And often the builders will say, we'll send you off to our design studio, go and pick your stuff. And of course, they're picking their stuff. They don't have a house to look at because it's being built, you know, and they're doing this early on when they have foundations are being built. And so they're having to imagine it. So really important when you're working with new construction is to spend some time on that if they can, to get some help as to where they might go to see these colors in larger visual platforms. Good. Anybody else like to add any comments to the painting? Did she still go for canary yellow, Minette, or did she go for a different color completely?
Oh, she chose a completely different color.
Isn't that amazing?
It was still yellow tone, which didn't and this is the other thing. I think everyone has such very different tastes, but they chose like a gray tinted carpet with gray countertops, and then it was a lighter version of a yellow. It still had yellow tits, and to me, when I walked away, I was like, that doesn't really go together at all. But to each their own, right?
They liked it, but when they come to sell it, they may find it a bit of a struggle. We've all seen that happen, haven't we? Selling houses with unusual colours in them. Okay, so the exterior and the brick goes out there and the side. So usually, you know, if you're looking at some sort of brick that you're going to have on the inside of the house, like this brick around this fireplace here, often it will match what's outside. If it is going to match it, just make sure it is going to work inside. Sometimes some colors don't work inside the home as well as they do it on the outside of the home. Obviously the fascia, the soffit, the rain gutters go on, starts to look more like a house now, which is pretty exciting, certainly for the buyer. They can start to feel like they're going to live in this house. It's going to be exciting for them. Cabinets and countertops, let's just talk about those for a moment, particularly if they're working with granite. Often, if you're working with a brand new build, it's going to be a custom built property. So you can't really see granite maybe in other homes. If you're working with a trap builder, often they'll say, you know, there's some granite in this one. Let's go and look at this spec home or this track home that's being, you can see what the granite looks like. If you're working with a custom built that don't have other homes to look at, you'll send you off to the granite, the company that's selling the granite, and that's all they have there. And so you walk around this warehouse with these huge pieces of granite, and you're going to be picking the granite that they're actually going to put into your home. So you have to think about, where your sink is going to go, or where your cooktop is going to go, or where your sinks are in the bedroom, where they're going to fit, because the piece of granite that you choose from that supplier will be the piece of granite that goes into your home, and any veins that are running through that granite are going to be running through the granite. Okay, so sometimes people get a piece of granite, and of course when it's all cut down and it's all shaped, sometimes those veins can look much stronger than they did when they were just looking at the whatever it is. It might be a 5 foot wide by 10 foot long piece of material. So beware of that, and if they are getting a piece of granite, figure out what part of that granite they're going to be using if they're not using the full size. Sometimes they're using the full size and chopping it up to go in different places, and it might look nice and wonderful downstairs in the kitchen, but then upstairs in the bathroom or the master bedroom bathroom, they've got it turned the other way, and of course now the granite veins are running contrary to how they expected them to run. So just be aware of that on granite countertops. Any other thoughts on cabinets or countertops? Sometimes there can be a delay for cabinets, depending on where they're buying them from. If they're not buying them from in-state contractors, if they're buying them from outside of state or country, sometimes there can be a delay on those cabinets arriving. So that can be another factor in the process. Obviously, going to finish the plumbing and electrics. And you go to the floor covering. We covered a bit of this early on about floor covering. Just be aware that carpets are a large piece of material. And the same with wood floors, they're going to be large pieces. So make sure they can visualize what they're going to look like. Landscaping. Often the builder will have another company that they may direct you to if you want the back of the house landscaping. And if so, you may deal directly with that contractor, or you may deal through the builder. But again, decide what you're going to be working with. If you're doing, flagstone pathways or curbing or rocks, some of these big rocks can be quite expensive. Just make sure your client understands, what they're getting involved in here. And if you need extra electrical lines or extra pipes that are going down to maybe a garden or a fruit orchard or whatever it may be, it's good to have that done before you get that landscaping rolling on. Okay, final walkthrough. Let's first of all talk about inspections, and then this will make the final walkthrough more clear. Just because you're having a brand new home built, it's new construction, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to have your own inspector turn up, which you can do. But let me share with you what has happened to this home so far. There's actually, first of all, what we might call the pre-pour inspection. None of us go on that. I mean, that's really the builder that does this. He's going to have the city come out and check the water and the sewer, the footing and the foundation, and the underground plumbing. That's going to happen. We won't be involved in that, but that will have happened between the builder and the city inspector. So that's the first one. Second one is going to be called the pre-drywall, which we know as the four-way inspection. It's going to cover your framing and your plumbing and your electrics and your HVAC. All right, and ideally, we want to go on that four-way inspection. Then we've got what we call the pre-final walkthrough. So the builder has to have all of these things checked because he's got to get a certificate of occupancy in order to get someone to be in the building. So he's going to have various different people come out and check all of these areas: the building structure, the roofing, the insulation, ventilation, electrics, plumbing, cooling, heating, interior, which includes the waterproofing, mildew, odor, dampness from walls, ceilings, and floors, and then also the built-in appliances. So that will all be done. And he can't issue that certificate until that has been done. And then we're going to do our final walkthrough. We're going to do our final walkthrough after all that has been done. Does that make sense? Any questions on that before I go further? Or any comments or add-tos or stories?
Yes, Steve, may I just make a comment?
Yes. Thanks, Connie.
On a new build, I have found it's always advisable to get a home inspection done, even though the contractor is doing all of these. One home in South Jordan, we found that the ceiling truss was busted, and so they had just patched it with another board on it, which is not right. You got to have that replaced. Another home, it was kind of a crazy one. They installed the dishwasher, but they did not route the drainage the correct way. So it would have backed up the wrong way. So
Yeah.
we have found a few things that has been missed by the builders. So I always like to just go ahead, and if I need to pay for it myself, the home inspection, just to have a second set of eyes on it.
Yeah, Sherry, good for you to raise that. I have got a little comment at the bottom here. I did say you could also have your new home inspected by your own private inspector. And I've had that done. I've had some clients who had a brand new home, you know, and they're spending a lot of money on this home. And it's okay. You know, if you're spending $400,000 or $500,000 on a home, just to spend maybe $300, $400, $500 on an inspection, your own inspector can give you definitely peace of mind. And the few times that I've had it happen, the inspectors always found something. They've not been big things, but they have been little things that need to be tidied up, which the client would not have found. And so, not that we would tell our clients you need to have your own inspector, but they can definitely have their own inspector come and look at this home if they would like to. The home has gone through those 3 processes of inspection. That doesn't mean to say that everything is as we need it to be. I would say most times it is, but if they would like it, their own inspection, then absolutely. Anybody got any thoughts or comments or stories like to share to add to what Sherry's just shared with us?
Can I ask, so if you ask an inspector to go out, do you do that at the 4-way? The home inspector?
Okay, that's a great question. I can tell you what I've done. In both of the cases where we had inspections done, they were done when the home was finished. So it was kind of like the final inspection, and the inspector went through the home I think before we did our walkthrough. I think that was when it happened. Has anybody here had an inspector go through? You can have an inspector go through any time you want, of course. Has anybody here, any of the seasoned agents, had an inspector go in, you know, at the 4-way? Which you certainly could do.
Just thinking, if you don't have them go prior to everything being concealed, then you wouldn't have known that the water was plumbed incorrectly or that the truss was just
Correct.
patched.
That's correct. Yeah, absolutely correct. And that's got to be the client's call. But we do know, as far as the city is concerned, they are going to be reasonably comfortable with all of those main areas because it's already gone through those 3 different inspections. And if something did crop up that was a problem that was in any of those areas that would have been approved by the city, then there is some fallback on that, and you can go to them to figure out why they approved it if it was not correctly done. Good. Anybody else got any thoughts or comments on that slide? All right.
I have a question.
Yes. Who's speaking?
Melinda,
Oh, Melinda. Okay, fire away. Yes. Thank you.
how many times has anybody had problems with you did your final walkthrough? Like, how many times have you had problems that they've had to fix? A lot of because I just had a builder, we just had a new construction and they had a lot of problems that they still had to like fix, even though the walkthrough, they still had messes that they were still fixing. Does anybody else have problems that they have to share?
Great question, Melinda. Anybody like to respond to Melinda's question there?
I actually had one once.
Okay, who's speaking?
Oh, Cindy. Sorry, I don't know how to do this. So anyway, but no, they had put the central air on the RV pad. So they ended up having to move the central air over to the other side of the house because they couldn't put their RV there, with the central air unit there. So that's one that I've had that was kind of crazy. So
yeah, good. And I presume it was your builder was fairly workable on that one. They were okay to change it.
yeah. The foreman actually ended up getting fired over that house because there was a couple other problems with it too. But anyway, they were when they got the new foreman in there, they were just more than happy to get things done and get it done on time. So it was good.
Right. Good. Thank you for sharing that, Cindy. Anybody else got any experience they'd like to share? I have one that I can remember. It was a bit more difficult to tidy up. It was the exterior vent pipes that were going out of the house, and they'd put them very close to the back door, the back kitchen door. And they're a funny looking pipe. They come out and they go up and they sort of, kind of look a little bit odd. But they were not high and they were not low. They were right in kind of like the walkway of that door area. So they looked quite unsightly. And we asked the foreman, could we have those moved? My client was not happy at all. He did not like them there at all. And they didn't look good. They looked very unsightly. And he said, no, we can't do that. That's just the way they are. And still my client was not happy. So what I did, I arranged a meeting with the actual builder owner. This was quite a large builder. So I had to go to their head office and meet with one of their directors on this. They built a lot of homes. And I met with them and he said, oh yeah, he says, I can understand that. And they got it fixed. But what it taught me is sometimes the person you're dealing with may not be as flexible as the actual owner of the company wants to be. So, if you have got a challenge and you do need to go up the line to the next person, then go ahead and do that because, you're fighting for your client. It was clear on this particular occasion, my client was very, very uncomfortable with these pipes sticking out where they were, because as you would walk into the back door, there was a few steps there and you could easily, knock them with your elbow or, little kids might, pour stones in them, and it was an irritation and they really needed to be moved. But the person that was looking after the project, he gave us no time of the day. It was not going to happen. They were going to stay there. But by going above it, I wouldn't go above his head unless it was important. But I did have to meet with one of the directors and we went through it. And I went there with the client, went to the head office, and they said, let's see what we can do about this. And it was clear that the director or the owner of the company thought, what's important here is that I've got a happy client. I've just sold a $500,000 home to him and I need to make sure he's happy because he's going to talk to people. I also need a happy realtor because he might bring me more business. And, it might cost him a couple $100 to fix that, but it was worth it. Whereas the foreman or the manager or whoever it was we were working with was not interested in that. So if you do have something that's amiss, I'd encourage you to just keep going up the line until you get some support. I think most good builders, in fact, probably all good builders, will do their best to accommodate any areas of concern that your client may have. Anybody got any other experiences to share that might be helpful to particularly our new agents that are on board when you're working with some of the challenges right at the end of a build that you may come in contact with? All right. Let's two-line. I'll just put a couple of notes on here that might be helpful. So let's put it, it's a really good idea to attend the final walkthrough with your client. Sometimes your buyer may have questions or concerns, but maybe not confident to raise them with the builder on their own. Remember, you represent them, not the builder. As you walk through the home, be sure to encourage your client to check all areas that need attention. I always say, hey, open the windows, open the doors, check the cabinets, open the drawers, open the little doors, check for any dents or paint marks or any damaged items. This is the time to do it. And often builders they'll have like a little soft tack glue tape that they'll put on the walls that will indicate areas that might need some more paint or some tidy up. Sometimes you'll find the windows don't open very well, and it may be because they're just brand new and they stick, or they may even be bent or bowed a little bit. And it's an ideal time to figure that out early on. So when you're going through that walkthrough with your client and the builder, encourage them to check everything. Check the lights, check the fans, check the closets, that the things shut properly, because sometimes they don't, and sometimes, and it's not because the builder doesn't want it to happen. Sometimes they've just been missed, and they will fix those issues, and they'll have a little document that they'll sign, and they'll say, well, sign this off, but only sign that when they've got all the items listed that you've agreed that the builder will fix. Any comments or thoughts on that slide? We're running out of voice here. I need more of you to ask questions. Just me and Melinda. I'm just joking, Melinda. We've got a lot of people listening. Okay, anybody else got any questions or thoughts on, damages or areas that we might need just to highlight while we're working on new construction when we get to the end post?
I have a question, but it's not
Perfect.
about the inspections or anything.
Okay.
So
who's speaking? Just let me ask who's speaking so I can find you.
Oh, it's Elizabeth McConkey.
Oh yeah, Elizabeth,
Yeah.
great, fire away.
Okay.
Perfect.
The question I have, so now with new builds, and maybe some of you would know the answer to this. So are there bidding wars on the new builds right now? I'm just having such a struggle with residential real estate and trying to get homes or condos for my people that don't have all cash. So I was just wondering if anyone knows, are there bidding wars with these new builds?
It's a great question. Anybody like to answer that for Elizabeth?
This is Melinda. I think it depends on the builder, because with the one that my client just got a couple months ago,
Yeah.
my client went in, and when they found the house, they went in and they said, if you bring in earnest money tomorrow, it's yours, because we don't want a bidding war. So.
And who was your builder?
It was DR Horton.
Okay. Thank you.
Good.
I saw out in Tooele that the builder just started doing spec homes, because then they were getting the multiple bids on the home, and they quit having a list of people. But I have seen out like in Saratoga Springs and Lehigh and that they're not wanting to have multiple bids, and they're just wanting to just get the people in there to buy the properties. So it really depends on where it's at and what the inventory is like there. Is kind of been my experience.
Okay.
Very good. Yeah. Anybody else got any other thoughts or comments on that? I think it does depend on the area. I do think that builders would rather not be trying to deal with a bidding war. They would rather just have someone come in and say, yes, we like this house, we'll pay you what you asked for it, and then that's one less thing they've got to worry about. So, but Utah is, or has at the moment, got the highest construction in the USA, closely followed by Colorado. So we've got a lot of people moving in, And there's a lot of new construction. I'm amazed at how much new construction we have. So yeah, if you are working with new construction, just be aware of some of these things. Our biggest responsibility is to make sure this is a smooth experience, that the journey is comfortable, or as comfortable as we possibly can with the clients we're working with. We had a client a few years ago, the builder could not get a permit, and so we had to move them to another builder. We had another, actually I don't know, a couple of years ago we had another builder that they kept getting promises, yes, we'll be able to start digging, and it went from month to month to month, and then we thought, you know, this isn't going to work. Our clients were in rented accommodation, their rentals were going to expire the following year in March, so we had to move to another builder. So sometimes if it's not happening, sometimes you have to move, but you've got to know how far you're in, because, you know, money's going hard all the time. You need to be moving out before too much money goes hard, particularly with custom build. You can end up losing a lot of money. We did have an experience many years ago, early on, and we'd sold this home for this couple, and they were going to build, which was great. And then we found out they were building with this particular builder, and we thought, oh, I wonder why they're not asking us to represent them. So we spoke to them and said, oh yeah, we just saw this builder and we thought we'd just do it alone. And okay, so fine. And we just so happened, we knew a bit about this builder, and we knew several people that had had an awful experience. I mean, I'm talking seriously awful experience. One of them had the house started, and then they couldn't finish it. The builder just left, and they had to employ another builder to finish it. Another person tried to sue the builder. I'm talking, there was like $100,000 in the pot here. And you know, this particular builder was a crook organization. They were doing this all the time, and so we felt it right to tell our clients, hey, be aware of this builder. I'm not trying to throw any mud at anybody, but we do know several people, and I'm talking 3 or 4 people that have had a very bad experience with this builder. We'd encourage you to talk to them before you get too far into this process. And they said, okay, yeah, we'll talk to them. So we didn't, you know, we just passed the names over, talked to these people, and these were several different people, and they spoke to them, and each time they said, don't touch this builder with a barge pole. This is our experience, and this is what actually happened. And none of them had a house that actually finished with this builder. And with all of that, our contact says, you know, we think the builder has tidied up his act and everything will be good. So we're going to stay with him and we're going to go alone. We said, that's fine. We just wanted to make sure that you got all the detail just in case, you know, that was of any value. Well, a few months down the track, they have exactly the same problem. It's just like another mirror image of what's happened to those other clients that used the builder. Exactly the same. They lost money, they couldn't finish the build. And the wife called my wife, Leslie, and she said, this is one of those times you say, I told you so. And we're really sorry. We should have followed your advice, because we've lost a lot of money with this builder, and now we've got to move to another builder. And I thought, yeah, that's just one of those things. But we couldn't do anything about it. We did our best. We shared with them information we had. We shared with them people that had dealt with the builder, but still they went ahead. So sometimes, you know, these builders can be very, very persuasive. I'm talking about some of these builders that are not good builders and still capture, you know, lots of money from potential clients that they don't finish off the build. So there are builders out there that are like that. There are not many of them. We've only come across, I think, 2 or 3 in our, you know, 12 or 13 years doing this. But they're out there. So just do your homework. Make sure that you can do what you can to help your client go through this process. Most builders are very good, I think, and want to do the best. Want to do the best for us and for them. Okay, keyword. Let's see if that's going to come up. Third keyword as we get into the last few minutes of this lesson, and it will be final. Final, it's F-I-N-A-L. If you've missed either of the other 2 keywords, please talk to Leslie and please do not share in the chat. And I will not be able to repeat them, but they did all begin with letter F. So final will be the last keyword. Should be out there on that slide. and it got stuck. Usually it flashes, but it's got stuck today. Not sure if that's going to move or not. If not, I'll just come out. Oh, there we are. There we go. So as we finish up this, we'll just look at this slide here. We will talk a little bit about the settlement and the after sales support. I might just have to come out and load in with that internet glitch, or it did start coming in. Okay, here we go. So 10 settlement where possible, really good to do that. I think it's good for us to be there and be with our client. If they've got any questions, we can help them. Often the building construction companies will give keys and access to the property immediately after settlement when the loan is with the lender. If the loan is not with, their lender, then they're most likely not going to get those keys. But often if they are, they can often get the keys. So be aware of that. Encourage your buyer to make a list of all fixes as they find it during the first month. Don't call up that after sales manager every day. This is not working. This is, I found this, because you're just going to wind them up. Ask them to make a list, for the first 20 or 30 days, and then send that list to the after sales manager or the builder or whoever it is you're dealing with, and they'll be much more happy to work on the list, and you'll get the items done quicker. There's always something to be done. Okay, I'll put a note in there. What did I say? This allows builders to deal with it collectively. Yeah, rather receive items to take. Very good. Okay, deal with that one. And then obviously have the builder follow up with, have the buyer follow up with the builder as often as they can to make sure each item is taken care of. For those of you with Presidio, we use SkySlope. For those of you with other brokerages, you probably use some sort of method system with your brokerage. Just make sure you've been on this project a long time with this build. Make sure your documents are completed and submitted to whatever system your brokerage has, so you get paid quickly. You waited a long time. You might as well get paid for it quickly. Don't start trying to line up all your documents after settlement, because you may end up delaying your paycheck.
Hey, Stephen, can I ask?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, I was curious, does anyone have like a new construction checklist or packet that they give to their buyers? There's a lot of information, and I'm sure that not all buyers will read through everything you can, but it'd be nice for them to have something to refer back to.
I've thought about that, Minette, but there is such a lot of information, and sometimes it's not all relevant for every build. Every build seems to have its unique, I guess, journey. I don't know if any realtors on this class have a checklist. I don't. I decided just to keep tightly with the client every step of the way, and because I know roughly what's going on, I can hopefully deal with those items as we get to them. But I don't know if anybody else has a checklist. I don't use one, but that's only because every build, and we've done quite a few builds, every build has been so different, and it does make a difference if you're working with a custom build compared to a track home. But good comment, Minette. If anybody wants to respond, now's the time. Okay, here's a thought you may consider, and maybe you do this, but certainly if you can, reach out to the builder during the first month to see how they're doing, see how they're settled in. This helps your client know that you care about them and you are still thinking about them, even though the transaction has been completed to their full satisfaction. Sometimes you'll find, and we had one a couple of years ago, they were in the property, I don't know, maybe for 3 months, and they had agreed that the builder was going to do all of the landscape at the back of the property. And after 3 months, it had not all been done. And the contractor that was out there working on it, they approached because they said, this section has not been done. He says, well, I've run out of money. I can't do that. They said, well, our contract with the builder was that, you would have all of this landscaped. And there was this section that was probably, I don't know, 20 foot by 10 foot or something that had not been done. They wanted some rocks there or something. And he says, no, I can't do that because, I've run out of money on this contract. So he wasn't going to be doing any more. So they contacted me and I contacted the builder, and, we got back to the original emails that clearly he said he would do. It was even on the contract, it was full landscaping at the back, and he did actually take care of it. But we didn't have to get involved in that. It was like 3 months after the transaction had completed. So just make sure you can do that. Anybody got any experiences on having to deal with new builds after the transaction is finished. Doesn't often happen, but sometimes does.
This is Melinda.
Big fire away, Melinda.
I'm still waiting for a lot of work to be done on my client's house. So I'm still working with the agent. So actually, I just am texting her right now to figure out when some work is going to be finished, and I'm not getting any response from her now. So.
Okay, that's what I would suggest you do. And I've done this many times. If you're responding with someone and they're not, well, if you're communicating with someone, they're not responding, then when you send them the next item through email, copy in their upline, whether it's a manager, a supervisor, or owner or director, or whoever it may be, copy them in. So they know, and let them see the trail email, all right? And then if you don't get a response that second time or third time, or whichever time it is, then you need to go to their upline, whoever that may be, whether it's a supervisor or owner or director, and copy the agency you're trying to communicate. And you'll be as simple as say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, just trying to tidy up this area with this build, my client. I have tried to communicate to so-and-so agent. Maybe she's out of town, or maybe she's sick, or maybe she's on vacation or whatever, but I could really do some answers on this. Wonder if you can help me. So if you tackle it that way, so you're gently bringing in another person into the equation, often you'll get a response fairly quickly from that superior person. They'll say, oh yeah, okay, leave it with me, let's work on this. And then of course, your original contact will come back into the frame. That way you're keeping the original contact comfortable. You're not sort of beating them up too much. You're just trying to get someone else to help you. Sometimes we will have people we're working with that have got other things going on in their life, or other building projects that are going on, and they are too busy to respond to it in a timely manner. So try and include that third person. That will definitely help you.
That's great. You did mention that at the beginning of this class. Thank you so much.
Just remember, right at the beginning, we talked about communication, and that's what this is all about. And sometimes it will be difficult to communicate. We have got to do everything we possibly can to keep those lines of communication open, because when those problems happen, we are going to rely on the people that we're working with to help solve them. And we've got to keep our client happy. The worst thing is when our client gets to the end of the build and they say, that was an awful experience. Because you know what? Even though it was the builder that was the awful experience, they attach you, us, me, we as realtors to that experience. That's the challenge we have. So we've got to try and keep this gently moving. It's a long time. Sometimes a build can take, a year or two, and we've got to keep patient and keep in the game.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Melinda. Thanks for and thank you all for your participation. Those of you who shared your thoughts. We talked a little bit about educating your client. Make sure you start that early on, so they know what to expect. And also, they are going to spend more on a home, on a new home that they're going to build than they are on an existing home, because they've got to put in their fences and the yard and the landscaping and the blinds and whatnot. Find the right builder. Real important, that is, right from the outset. Make sure everybody understands what that contract is and what it says. And sometimes you may have to add to it with an addendum to adjust it so that everybody's comfortable. House plans, make sure we understand what they are. We can read them properly. We can visualize how big those rooms are and what is on those plans. Two-dimensional plans are great to look at, but sometimes very difficult to envision in a three-dimensional platform. Communication, 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 what it's all about. If we can keep our communication good with both our client and our builder or builder representative or agent, then this will be a smoother transaction for us, because we will most likely hit some bumps in the road. Building process is quite complex, so often our client doesn't understand how many things are going on here, but there is a lot of things going on. These builders have 1,001 things they've got to do to put this house together, and sometimes their priorities may not line up with our priorities, so we've got to kind of all be patient with each other as we go through that process. Inspection, of course, you can have your own inspection done on a new build, but just be aware it is going through some rigorous inspection platforms. Just make sure that that will be the decision of the buyer if they've done that. We've seen it done different ways. Overcoming challenges, if you do get any of those, let's do them quickly so everybody's happy. And of course, that final walkthrough is key. Make sure everything's tested and looked after. We get to that settlement and the after sales support. Hopefully, the after sales support is good. Sometimes, I don't mean to be critical here, but sometimes with large builders who are doing many, many homes, they can sometimes be stretched on that after sales support. So you may need to do a little bit more help with those guys. Okay, just be aware of that. Not always, it depends on which subdivisions you're working with. But sometimes the after sales support might not look or appear to be as good as the build, just because they're trying to put too many fires out. So just be aware of that. Keep contact with your client after the event, and you can help them through that process. Okay, well, we got to the end. We did it. We did it. So Leslie Ann should come on any moment. Thanks for being with us today. You've all been a great team. Thanks for your thoughts and comments, stories, and participation. She's going to share with that for in a moment. I just want to highlight one thing for you in that blue copy down there. If your hours have not been credited within the next 5 days, please contact Leslie Ann or me, because most likely what has happened is the information you've given me will have not gone through the system. It may have been mismatched. So either spelling of the name wrong or the numbers not correctly given. So that's where we are. Leslie Ann will wrap this up and also tell us what class you've got coming up next, and she'll send the form to you.
Hey, Steve, I have a quick question.
Yes, fire away.
Sherry, is there a way, there is so much good information in this presentation. Is there a way that I can download that and keep that for my...
So what we've done, Sherry, what we do now, we can't actually send copies of this because it's copyrighted, but we do record